without further ado, I'd like to give you have a warm welcome from Pontefract and all the other parts of the country, of course, that are here tonight. As it says on the screen, for Brigadier General, though he hates that, Charles M. Duke. Ladies and gentlemen, Charlie Duke. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's glad to be here with you again. Appreciate you showing up for this event tonight. It was a pleasure to be back here, and I want to thank Ken, who worked with over the years, and other friends that I've seen during this time here and last weekend in Birmingham. So it's really nice to be here, and thank you for coming. I hope you enjoy the evening. I find it entertaining and informative. To start off, a little background about my career and my life. I was born in a small town in South Carolina, Lancaster. My ancestors were from England, and so were my wife, so we feel right at home when we come over here on our visits. My little town was about 9,000 people, and my parents moved there after World War II, and my twin brother and I grew up in this town, and to be honest, when I was 12 years old, I did not have a dream about going to the moon. I did not say to my Mama, one day I'm going to walk on the moon. Mama would have sent me to the psychiatric hospital. There wasn't any space flights, there weren't any astronauts, but I had a desire to serve my country. My dad was in World War II in the Navy, and so when I was a 10th grader in high school, I decided that's what I wanted to do. So I had to go off to prep school for 2 years to get prepared to go to the Naval Academy. So at 16, I left home and went to St. Petersburg, Florida, in this all-boys boarding school. And it was a real experience. It developed me into a young man, gave me discipline and military drills and stuff like that, so it was appropriate for me when I went to the Naval Academy. I did get selected and went there, and while I was there, though, I fell in love with airplanes. I decided I wanted to be a pilot rather than a shipboard officer. And back then, there wasn't an Air Force Academy, so you could join the Air Force from the Naval Academy on a voluntary basis. And so as a result of that, I began to think about Air Force, but I really didn't make the final decision until a few months before I graduated, and the doctors, as I was taking a physical at the Naval Academy, decided, or they checked my eyes and said, Midshipman Duke, you have a problem in your right eye, and you don't qualify for naval aviation, but the Air Force will take you. So I went in the Air Force and had 29 years active in reserve. It was a tremendous career for me. Became a fighter pilot, went to Germany. When I was in flight school, I'd been flying about a month when the Russian Sputnik went up. So that was the beginning of the space age in my mind. Then 4 years later, I was in Germany as a fighter pilot in 1961. Berlin Wall, a lot of tension in the Cold War, and then Yuri Gagarin flew, and the Russians beat us again. Shortly thereafter, though, the Alan Shepard went up, and as you remember, some of the older ones here, and gave America their first man in space. 2 weeks later, President Kennedy announced that we're going to go to the moon, we're going to land on the moon, and we're going to return safely by the end of the decade of 1960, the 60s. All of us pilots in Ramstein laughed, hooted at him because, you know, 15 minutes in space, and most rockets were 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blow up rather than lift off. And And so I didn't think we had a dream of doing it. But the most amazing, I look back now, and the most amazing thing about it was that, well, in my personal case, was 8 years and 2 months later, I'm in mission control talking to Neil Armstrong when he landed on the moon. It was a remarkable program to accomplish that program in 8 years and 2 months. Today in the United States, you couldn't even write the proposal in 8 years and 2 months, much less get it accomplished. There's just no momentum, if you will, for the manned space program right now, which is sad, but that's the truth. Well, after Germany, I went off to MIT and MIT to test pilot school. Met some former astronauts, astronauts that had been selected before I was, and so they were so charged up. This is the greatest program, the greatest job you could have, and so I decided that I would volunteer if I got the opportunity. And sure enough, in August 1965, NASA put out a call for more astronauts. I was very fortunate to have been selected on my first go. A couple of guys in my group it was a second or third time that they had tried, and so I was very fortunate to get picked. So in April of 1966, 19 of us showed up at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas, and we started our training. At first, you don't learn to fly the spacecraft. There's only one simulator, so the crews that were flying flew that, and we did ground school, we did systems about Apollo, we did geology. You know, the whole purpose of going to the moon is to pick up rocks, and so I didn't have a clue about rocks. This is a piece of dirt and that's a rock. That's about my knowledge of geology. So but after 6 years of training, getting ready to go to the moon, I had an equivalent of a master's degree in geology. It turns out lesson number one is the most important in geology, and lesson number one is pick up one of every color. And on the moon there's white ones, gray ones, and black ones. And so, but there was a lot more to it than that, but I got one of every color when I was up on the moon. We had 9 missions that went to the moon, and I was very fortunate to work on 5 of those. I was support on Apollo 10, the first time we took the lunar module to the moon. I was in mission control, as I said, when Neil and Buzz landed on the moon, Apollo 11. I was back up on Apollo 13, which, as you remember, had an explosion on the way to the moon. We lost all the oxygen in the command module. It was a very critical situation. So as backup crew, John Young, myself, and now T.K. Mattingly was on our crew. We went into mission control quickly and worked for 35 hours trying to get them back safely. And it didn't look very good at the beginning. It looked grim, as a matter of fact. We had a spacecraft remaining, the lunar module, that was made for 2 guys for 3 days. Now we got 3 guys for 4 days. How do you make it last? Oxygen, electrical power, things like that. And so we were going to run out of those consumables before we got back, it looked like. But we got smarter and smarter, and as we managed systems in mission control, and 40 hours later, I knew that we were going to make it with stuff. We got enough oxygen, electrical power, and if we didn't make a mistake in mission control and they didn't make a mistake up on board, we were going to make it, and sure enough, we did. Then John and I started training with T.K. Mattingly on Apollo 16. It didn't take you 2 years to get ready to go to the moon, but just the way the schedule went, we trained for 2 years, from April 1970 to April 1972. We were on what was called the J missions. The first lunar modules would stay maybe 30 hours on the moon. These were designed for 72 hours, and there was a little car we called the lunar rover. It was bolted to the outside of the spacecraft, and so when we got to the moon, we deployed the car, and now we've got a good way to get around the moon. Prior to that, everybody just walked. So the car was a revolutionary design for lunar surface exploration. So it was, and it was a lot of fun to ride and a lot of fun to drive. You'll see it in a DVD I'm going to show in just a moment. So John and I, we were ready to go. You can imagine 2 years of training. We were just like a racehorse at the gate, you know, ready to go, and let's go. And so the day of liftoff, we got on board hour and a half or what so before, got strapped in very tightly, and we called it the closeout crew. They closed the hatch, looked in through the window, and gave us a little wave, and they left. They didn't want to be around when this thing ignited, and I don't blame them. There's a lot of flame and a lot of shaking. So we were waiting there, we were listening to the countdown and just on our backs watching the instrument panel, and none of the windows except for the one in the hatch was uncovered. The rest were covered over, so you couldn't see outside. So the countdown proceeded, and if what you're really thinking about at this point, please don't stop. Let's go. Please don't abort. We're ready to launch. And just give me my chance. Let's launch this thing. And so we got down to, T-minus 30 seconds, and they kept counting. Then T-minus 15 seconds, and they were still counting. And so it looked like we had a pretty good chance. You wanted to go because on Apollo's schedule, to get to your landing spot at the moon, you had only a 4-hour window each month. And so if you aborted and didn't get off in that 4 hours, you had to wait a month. Well, in a month you could break a leg, they could cancel the program, you could get sick, you could crash in an airplane. So there's just a lot of things that could go wrong with you. And so that's why let's go. Well, right on the second, we lifted off. And we were on our way. At that time, I was really excited. The thing was vibrating a lot. If you've never seen a real Saturn, when you see one, you're overcome with the size of it. It was 363 feet tall, 110 meters. It was about 11 meters, 33 feet diameter, and fully fueled it weighed 3 million kilograms or 6.5 million pounds. And you're sitting up on the top of that thing, and when these engines at the bottom are pushing with 7.5 million pounds, so you have 7.5 million pushing 6.5 million. So the acceleration's not very fast, but the vibration from side to side is tremendous. And so you get a little excited at this point, and you can't see outside. And John, the commander, says, we're go, and mission control, you go. And so I didn't think we were going much anywhere with a vibration. So later on, when we got back, I asked the flight surgeon, I said, what was my heartbeat at liftoff? He said, you were excited, Charlie. And I said, you're right, I was. I'll admit that. And he said, your heartbeat was 144. And so I said, well, what was John's? He'd ridden one before on Apollo 10. He said, John's was 70. So we had the guy that was the coolest was the commander. So, and we went into orbit, and we circled the Earth 1.5 times, and over Australia, we ignited the third stage of the Saturn and accelerated to 40,000 kilometers per hour, or 25,000 miles an hour, and we're on our way to the moon. Now, the Apollo trajectory took 72 hours to get to the moon, and that was the design because of the fuel we had on board to slow down when you got to the moon. You could go direct to the moon in 12 hours, but you're going so fast when you get there, we didn't have enough fuel to slow down and go into orbit, and then get out of orbit. So they shot us out way out in front. So our average speed was a little over 3,000 miles an hour during our journey to the moon. So 72 hours, you got to go to sleep, you got to use the toilets, and you got to eat and do experiments. So you're really busy going in and out, and you really want to be a good housekeeper, because you found out in weightlessness, if you let things go, they float off somewhere. And you could never, a lot of times you had a tough time finding these things. So if you took something out, you better put it back, or you were going to have a tough time. So we learned to be good housekeepers up in weightlessness. Sleeping was very refreshing once you got used to it and you're calmed down. The first night first rest period, I was 90 miles an hour in my mind, and so it was hard to get to sleep. But then after that, we were okay. And the only other time I had difficulty going to sleep was our first rest period on the moon. And we were scheduled to go outside right after we landed and explore the first time, and then come back and have a rest period, but we were late landing, and so the mission control changed the flight plan and said, go to sleep. Again, you imagine 2 hours after you land off the moon, somebody says, go to sleep. Yeah, sure, buddy. And I had to take a sleeping pill to do it, but you needed your rest. So we have a beautiful picture of the Earth here on this a video I'm going to show. But when we were on the way to the moon, now the windows are uncovered, you can see out, and out there at 20,000 miles away was the whole circle of the Earth. And the view we had was Arctic Circle down across Canada, the United States, Mexico, Central America. The land was all brown, about the shade of this floor. The oceans were crystal blue, and the snow and the clouds were just pure white. And there's a jewel of Earth just suspended in the blackness of space. Now, in space, it's always daylight. There's no night between Earth and Moon. So you look outside and you just see blackness, except for the Earth and the Moon, because the brightness of the sunlight just obliterates the stars. It's similar here in the daytime. You go outside, there's stars up there at 12 noon, but you can't see them because of the sunlight. So you sort of lose track of time. The only way on a space mission that you can tell where you are, if you will, is a flight plan. And the flight plan is basically per hour. And so you have this book that says it's your flight plan. And there's a clock inside the spacecraft that when you lift off, the clock starts. And it counts up 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. And so the way you keep track of where you are is the flight plan matches that clock. So if you got to 5 hours and 30 minutes or whatever it was, you're on the way to the moon, eat the meal or whatever. And so your whole flight plan, the whole 11 days, is according to that flight plan and that clock. Well, so we were on our way and settled down into this 3 days, and the fourth day, the third day, it's about like 76 hours later, we were at the moon. We slowed down and got into orbit, and boy, it was really exciting. As we were on the dark side of the moon when we slowed down and got into orbit, and then we had this tremendous sunrise. Just bang, the sun was there. And you look down, and the back side of the moon is rough, the part we could see. And you would not have liked to land back there. Even if Mission Control would have let you land back there without any communications, you could not see, I couldn't see a level spot back there. And so the front side's different, and so the part we see from the Earth is a lot smoother than the back side, which is sometimes in sunlight, sometimes isn't. Well, we had about a half moon in the sky, so when you looked up, you would have seen a half moon. When I looked out the window, I saw a half Earth out there. And the Earth was going towards the new phase, and the moon was going towards full. So the sun, where we landed, which was in the center of the moon, the sun was getting higher and higher and higher during our 72-hour stay on the moon. We landed at a very low sun angle so that we could see the shadows. the shadows of the craters, the rocks, and things like that, which gave you some good idea of the roughness of the terrain, and so you could pick a landing spot that was adequate. John did that. We had some problems in orbit, but we recovered thanks to mission control, so 6 hours behind schedule due to these problems, we got to land. And we were pumped up, buddy. I'll tell you, it was so exciting to land on the moon. Neil Armstrong, when he landed, it was Buzz Aldrin said, "Contact, engine stop." And in this calm voice, "Houston, Tranquility Base here, the Eagle has landed." Well, when I landed, I was screaming, "Yahoo, Houston, Line is finally here, boy." It was fantastic. We had our nose glued to the window describing every rock and every crater that we could see, and it was just amazing. And to imagine that Neil, with all the problems we had on Apollo 11, almost running out of fuel, computer overloads, communication problems, and he was just the coolest guy you can imagine. We're here. And that's basically what he was saying. And when John and I landed, we were almost jumping up and down in the spacecraft. So people wondered, what were your feelings on the moon? You don't feel anything as far as the dirt of the moon, the soils of the moon, because you got moon boots on. So you can step on it, but you don't feel. It's like walking barefoot on the beach. But let me tell you, your emotions are running all scale high. And the excitement, the wonder, the enthusiasm that you have for your task at hand. And so after this first rest period, we suited up and we got outside. Our landing spot was called Descartes. It's in the middle of the moon as you view it from the Earth. I get questioned, what did the Earth look like from the moon? I said, I really can't tell you, because when we landed, the Earth was right overhead. And in an Apollo, it's like being in a fishbowl, and you move your head, but the helmet doesn't move, so you look up, and you're looking at the top of your helmet. So we didn't see the Earth from the moon, except one time when I fell over backwards, that you'll see. Oh yeah, there it is, right out there. But then we had so we got outside for the first time, deployed the car, and then started our geology. Strangely, you feel right at home on the moon. You didn't feel like an alien or, Star Wars-y stuff. It was just, you just felt like you belonged. You recognized the major landmarks that you'd studied from the photographs that had been taken of your landing site on prior missions. And so, yeah, there's Stone Mountain down over there, and here's Smoky Mountains over here, and we got to go out to Plum Crater on the first day. And so it was just like you belonged. We had studied so much these photographs, and in the model that we flew in the lunar module for the landing, you could recognize all of the major craters. So when we pitched over to see the moon for the first time at altitude of about 2,000 meters, you could see the craters, and we were right on target. And we knew we had it made. If the thing didn't stop burning at that point and you crashed, you were going to be in familiar territory, and we were. And so we spent, the longest EVA we had was 7 hours and 41 minutes or something like that. The shortest was a little over 5 hours. So what we did for our 72 hours on the moon, we divided it up into 3 24-hour periods. So you had a rest period. You ate a meal before you, when you woke up, which really wasn't very good. We didn't have any hot water on the moon, so you just weren't hungry. You were so pumped about getting outside. And then we had, let's see, right after that we ate a meal. Then we suited up, which took 2.5, 3 hours maybe. Then we pressurized, opened the hatch, went outside, and started our exploration. And that, as I said, the longest one was over 7 hours. The moon is covered with dust, very, very fine, like talcum powder. And so everywhere you walked, you left your footprints. So you never worried about getting lost. Everywhere you drove your car, you just left your footprints and the tracks. And so you just did it. If you were unsure of yourself, you just made a big U-turn and followed your tracks back, and it was going to take you back to the lunar module. I asked John, kiddingly, of course, what are we going to do if we run across another set of tracks up here? And he said, I don't think we're going to see any. And sure enough, we didn't. But the car was an electric car, and there was a handle between the seats. I was in the right seat. John was left seat, and he was driving while I navigated. He pushed the handle up, and the car went forward. Pulled the handle back, and the car stopped. Pull the handle left, and the car turned left. Front wheels would go left, rear wheels would go right, and so it was very maneuverable. And so generally, we get the spot. If we had to turn around, we just did a U-turn. But if that didn't work, John got on his side, I got on my side, and we just picked it up and turned it around. Up on the moon in 1/6 gravity, you feel like you're Superman. And car weighed like 80 or 90 pounds up on the moon. And it was a great machine. We set the moon speed record, 17 kilometers per hour, 11 miles an hour. And it felt like we were going to bounce off the moon at those speeds. It was a very springy vehicle. So we got all the experiments out, and we did all of the experiments that we were supposed to do on our first excursion. Got back inside. Took off our suits, took off our backpacks, recharged everything, new batteries, more oxygen, all of that stuff, and took our suits off, and because it's not very comfortable sleeping in them. And so we had a debriefing, we ate a meal, and then went to sleep again. And we had hammocks that went this way across the lunar module, and that's about that far off the floor where I slept, and then John was back forward to aft, and his was about 3 feet above me, so he was sleeping up here, and I was down here, and our suits we'd taken off and put over in the back part of the lunar module. Then woke up, and we just repeated our deal every day. We saw some really spectacular sights. Probably the most spectacular sight I can remember is on the second day we'd gone south to Stone Mountain, and we climbed up the side of this mountain and turned around, and we were about 300 feet above the valley floor where we had landed. And you could look out across this tremendous valley that was desolate. Buzz Aldrin called it magnificent desolation. I called it awesome desolation. And the thought occurs to you, nobody's ever been here before. And so it's almost an overwhelming thought. And so we were up there, and the only color you could see was our little lunar module out there in the middle of the valley. Everywhere else was just gray moonscape, and then the sharp break between the horizon of the moon and the blackness of space. And on the moon, it was always daylight, so we never saw the stars on the lunar surface. A day on the moon from sunrise to sunset's 2 weeks. So as I said, the sun moves very slowly, and it was an exciting adventure. So I'm going to show this DVD now that I call Moonwalker, and it's silent, so I will narrate it, and I hope I'm not standing in the way of anybody. So let me get over here. Every Apollo had a patch. This is ours. I guess you can figure out. And everybody had their names on them except for Neil Armstrong. He didn't have his name on his patch. Here's the Saturn lifting off. Ignition starts. Takes about 7 seconds for the engines to build up the power, and then it lifts off. It's very slow. This white stuff you see here falling off is ice. There were about 2 tons of ice on the vehicle from the coal fuel. And we were up at the top, of course, shaking like crazy. And you can see the effect of the vibration. All the ice shook off before we cleared the launch tower. The first stage was from here down, and it lasted 2 minutes and 41 seconds in our case, and took us to an altitude of about 35 miles and to about 8,000 miles velocity, and then they shut down at 4.5 times gravity. And in that time, we burned up 4.5 million pounds of fuel, over 2 million kilos of fuel. And we're, of course, up at the top here in the command module. That little needle up there is a launch escape tower. So if the rocket blew up, it automatically jettisoned you off the vehicle, and then you could re-enter in the command module and make it even for a big explosion. You can see that the atmosphere is getting less and less dense because the rocket plume is expanding, making it actually more efficient. This is a tremendous camera that was on Earth and followed us almost to 60 miles. The first stage falls away. You can imagine the explosive charge it took to separate a 33 feet diameter vehicle that weighed several 100,000 pounds at this point. You see the Atlantic Ocean. That's what it looked like from the Earth. Then the interstage falls away, and the clouds over the Atlantic. Here's the first stage falling away, and in Florida it's back over here in almost the edge of the horizon. This is a picture that we took on the way to the moon. We were about 20,000 miles away, and up over here is the Arctic Circle. This is the eastern Pacific Ocean. Los Angeles is probably right in this area in here. This is Baja California. Up here are the Rocky Mountains. Houston is over in this position here, and Florida's back over here. You can see the land's all gray, brown, and the clouds over Mexico down here. And from this altitude, Earth looked uninhabited. You couldn't see any evidence of civilization. And then the puffy white clouds of the eastern Pacific Ocean. Okay, let's continue on. As this is actually a still photo, and the camera's just panning back to give you an idea of what the whole of the Earth looks like. Now, only Apollo astronauts get to see this. Shuttle astronauts can't see the whole Earth because they're too close. Or the International Space Station. There's T.K. Mattingly. He's staying in shape because he wasn't going to do moonwalks. He was going to stay in orbit. This is the main instrument panel. John Young, you saw, there's me. We've taken off our spacesuits. The purpose of this is sort of showing you what weightlessness does. You can see things float off, and it's impossible to keep an object steady. So one of the things we tried to do was get this flashlight here steady, and you can see it. You can't do it. This is one of our food bags. This was a drink. Forgot what it was, like maybe cocoa. Here's a space shuttle guy with grape juice. So I selected that. Liquid wants to take the shape of a sphere, and so you just sucked it in, and he had to swallow grape juice. And this is the banana trick. We didn't have bananas on Apollo. We just had dehydrated food. Space Shuttle is a lot nicer. They had an oven, not an oven, but a microwave, a freezer, and all of that. This is the lunar module, of course. We just separated. Now we're in lunar orbit, and we're John Young and I are flying. John is looking out of this window. I'm looking out of that window. Here's the door, and when you get on the moon, you open the door, climb out backwards onto the porch, down the ladder, onto the foot pad and you can step on to the moon. It was about 15 feet from the door to the foot pad, and the vehicle at this point weighed about 18 tons. Command module, if you remember, it stays in orbit. Here he is. We had a problem, so we're rendezvousing. Here's what the Earth looked like. You can see it's a lot of clouds. But Mission Control fixed our problem, so 6 hours behind schedule. We're now 6,000 feet above the moon, and we recognize these large craters. Now we cut out the rest, and now we're down to about 30 feet, 10 meters. And we're blowing the moon dust out. And here's the shadow comes in. These long probes here, electrical probes, and when they touch the moon, it turns on a light, says contact, and you shut the engine down. You don't want to land with the engine running and land on a big rock and it plug up the exhaust, it'll blow up, which is spoil your whole day. So we shut down and dropped in. Looking to the south, we went to this mountain over here, that's Stone Mountain. Here's John Young's first footsteps onto the moon. And notice this, how dark it is in the shadows, how bright it is in the sunlight. Stone Mountain is over here. Here I am. We didn't have any digital cameras. We had all film cameras. So this is a film magazine I'm putting on the back of my camera. And I noticed there's some dust on it, so I'm going to blow the dust off. I felt like an idiot. And I didn't tell them they could hear me do it, but you know, blowing like that, it wasn't working. So we put the flag up, and here's me, and John comes out for salute. The flag is being held out by an aluminum rod, and it's wrinkled because it had been vacuum packed for 6 months, and you couldn't stretch the wrinkles out. So there's not a strong breeze up there holding the flags out. So here is John for his Navy salute, and he gives a jump for joy. Up on the moon, we weighed about a little less than 30 kilograms with all of that stuff on. Now here I am, TV cameras following me out with my experiments package. This is my most embarrassing moment, by the way, in our mission. I have $10 million worth of lunar experiments in my hands. And they're here, right here. And so I'm bouncing along, and they fall off. I said, oh no, I've lost the whole deal is gone, you know. But fortunately, in 1/6 gravity, they just sort of touched the ground and rolled over, and I was able to retrieve them, and everything worked fine. Here's John with a magnetometer, which was an experiment that we had on the back of the rover. And if you notice his feet, up there, since there's no atmosphere, the dust doesn't swirl around, it just flies out and lands again. So that happened when we landed. The dust just flew out, and when the engine stopped, the dust stopped. Here I am drilling a hole into the moon. This was a little battery-powered drill, and I had 3 holes to drill. They were each 10 feet deep. John was working on this data station and the power station. Unfortunately, he got tangled up in one of the cables and ripped it loose, so we lost that experiment. Here's the rover. This is the only footage of the rover where you can see the whole car. And I'm taking the picture and John is driving. As I said, my job was the navigator and with the maps, and you can see how rough it is. Here I am now doing an experiment, and I fall down. It went in weighted more than I expected. And so this is how you get up on the moon when you fall on your face. You little push-up, then a rock back and do another push-up, and then one more, and you're up. So it took me about 3 push-ups to get up. We actually could get up when we were on our back, but it's better for your buddy to help you. You'll notice we're collecting samples here, and generally it was more efficient to have 2 guys do it at once. And you can see the dust now collecting on our suits, and by the 3rd day, they were brush that dust off the suit. here I am trying to collect a rock by myself, and it's just not working. But I was determined. I had perseverance, and I don't know why I wanted to pick up that rock, but I was determined to get that rock. It wasn't not go outsmart me. So this time I was a little bit more gentle, and I caught it, but I dropped the bag I was putting it in. But we had plenty of bags. One of the bigger rocks we saw, but the biggest one was about the size of this auditorium, this theater. It was 90 feet long and about 45 feet high. So it was huge. We called it House Rock, and we visited it on the last day. This is Stone Mountain. This is looking to the southeast, and was our last objective. John, you're doing the Moon Olympics, and here I am going to set the high jump record. And so there I go, over backwards. And that looked funny, but it was scary, because if I land on that backpack wrong and it breaks, you're dead. My heart was pounding. John helped me up, and I checked everything out, and it checked out okay. So I started to calm down, and so now as I'm getting up, he's there, just helped me up, and Mission Control was very upset, and no more Moon Olympics. So I hold a high jump record on a lunar surface. Picture of my family. We had two sons, and they were very young at the time, of course. It's been 40 years. So they had their picture taken and put on the moon. They were very excited about it. We left the car on the moon with a 2D camera operating. This is actually Apollo 17, but I chose it because the guy had to start the camera moving before we actually lifted off. And so he didn't do it very well on our flight, but this was great. So there are 3 cars up on the moon, $8 million each. They all got dead batteries, and if you want one, you can go get it. And so here's our ascent stage and us rendezvousing with Mattingly. This is just sort of the same picture, sort of showing us going back to Earth. Actually, it was just a thin sliver of blue and white. We hit the atmosphere at 26,300 miles an hour, and there's a fireball outside the spaceship as you decelerate into the atmosphere at 7.5 times gravity. You can see we were shooting for a spot in the Pacific Ocean, and Apollo didn't have wings, but it did have lift, and so you could roll back and forth to control this landing site. And we came within probably 1 mile of our landing site. We started, it was like we covered 4,000 miles from 400,000 feet, and we ended up in the South Pacific. And basically from 100,000 feet, you just basically coming straight down. At 23,000 feet, the parachutes deploy, and not the main chutes, but the drogue chutes. And then at 10,000 feet, the main chutes deploy. And there's a quote in a museum in Huntsville, Alabama, at the Marshall Space Flight Center. In my quote, it says, the most beautiful sight in all of Apollo is the parachutes. Because if you don't get the parachutes, you don't survive. You can have the most successful mission of all as far as moon rocks, experiments, but if you don't get those parachutes, you hit the water. Spacecraft, it probably kills you on impact, but the spacecraft would break open, they estimate, and you just sink immediately. And so, fortunately, we only had 1 parachute in all of Apollo that didn't work. And there's our splashdown, taken from the aircraft carrier. 45 minutes later, we were on board the aircraft carrier because there was no quarantine. We discovered there are no moon bugs, Andromeda strains, so you're not going to get everybody contaminated with some strange virus. So we knew that by the time we flew, and so we didn't have quarantine. So I was on backup for Apollo 17, didn't get a chance to go again, and then Apollo was over. They canceled the last 3 missions, which we were very disappointed with, but that's just the way this management decided to do it. There were 12 of us that walked on the moon. 24 individuals went to the moon. Our crew is still all alive. So we're one of the few crews that are still all here. 4 astronauts have died. Most recently, Neil Armstrong last August. He was a great friend and a great loss. It was a tragedy, really, that he was recovering, and then some problems developed with open heart surgery, and he just went downhill rapidly. So we lost a great American and a great friend, probably the most humble man I ever met. Well, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So if anybody's got any questions, we got a microphone somewhere roaming around, and we got time for 6 questions. So,
what we do, we just got the microphones just coming out from the control room, so
okay.
we'll have a quick drink.
Yeah, why don't you call for a question?
So, who's first? You got the Sarah. Yeah.
Lots of people in this room are a great hero, but did you have any heroes and what did you do between who are they and why?
My heroes were the generation of World War II. My dad's generation. And so I really admired the military guys who fought so hard to give us our freedom. And that's why I wanted to go into the military.
That's it.
Yeah.
Most people only first tell me the moment we terrified. How did you overcome fear? Were you trained?
If you had fear about flying a spacecraft, you wouldn't have gone volunteered. We were fighter pilots, we were test pilots, and so your positive attitude is let's go. I have faith in my ability, faith in this equipment, and we're going to overcome whatever we have. Now that's pie in the sky, but that's the attitude we had. Nobody was fearful except that one time when I did something I wasn't supposed to be doing. Okay?
Say.
This is working tremendous. There's a lovely quote from you in the film Shadow of the Moon, where you mentioned that your father was born around the time of the Wright brothers, but your young son Tom, I think, was about 5 when you went.
That's right.
And he didn't think it was any real big deal that Dad went to the moon. Now that your sons are adults, have they looked back on that and thought, heck yes, it was a big deal for Dad to go to the moon?
Yeah, they do, and they're very proud of their dad, and they've given us 9 grandchildren, so my grandchildren are more impressed than they were, I'll tell you. I tell you, the reason that they weren't really impressed was we lived in a neighborhood that was all astronauts. Our next door neighbor was Bill Anders, Apollo 8. Neil Armstrong lived a block away behind us. Ron Evans was our back door neighbor. Frank Borman, Tom Stafford, Stu Rusa, Hank Hartsfield, everybody lived in our neighborhood. So everybody's going to the moon, so it's no big deal.
Yes.
If you could have 4 people, dead or alive, come to dinner, who would they be and why?
4 people to dinner.
12? 16?
Oh.
You can
Oh, I see
invite
what
anybody.
Well, we were all friends with the in the astronaut corps. We were a very tight group. I admire Mother Teresa. I'd ask Jesus to come. I'd like to have met, had Ronald Reagan to dinner. He was a great supporter. And finally, probably for the guy that really got Apollo going was Jack Kennedy, President Kennedy. So those 4. Yeah.
Sit at the back.
Yeah.
My life, Charlie. Hi. My father always used to say to me, son, the world's your oyster. Clearly in your case, that's not the case. You've been a bit further than that.
I didn't understand.
I'm saying the world's your oyster. You can do whatever you want within the world. But obviously in your case, you've been a bit further than that. But I'm just wondering about, he inspired me, obviously. I
Yeah.
fly and on one thing and another. I was just wondering what you would say to the younger generation to inspire them, what words of wisdom you'd have for them.
Well, the younger generation, when I spoke to the school here, it's really the same story. You got one mind and one body. You better take good care of your body, and you better take good care and develop your mind to the best of your ability. And pick a career that would be challenging to you, whether it be science, technology, engineering, math, philosophy, medicine, whatever it is. Focus in on something and do the best you can to the best of your ability. And then as life progresses through these decision points, as you grow up, like in my case, 16, I decided to go off to school at Naval Academy. And then, but wasn't a clue I'd be an astronaut, but I was in a career that was so exciting, even if I had not been selected, I would have still had a very rewarding career. So I encourage the kids to stay in balance in their life and study something that is good and challenging to you.
Thanks, Rob. And I think certainly from having looked at the faces of the children who were in the theatre yesterday afternoon, they were totally and utterly besotted with you, weren't you know, in terms of the way they just, no eye sort of moved away throughout the whole period Charlie was talking. Right, another question, please.
Charlie, can I just ask you what your emotions and feelings were when you actually put your first foot on another planet?
The overwhelming feeling I had is nobody's ever been here before, and it was wonder. You just look around and you see all of this beautiful moon that you got to explore, and so that was after that first sense of belonging, if you will, and wonder. Then it was let's get to work. We're already behind. So we were mostly focused on the timeline after that, and just as you could, you would enjoy the scenery.
We have one very young member of the audience. I don't know, just you want to ask the question?
Do you have toilets in the spacecraft?
Well, they always ask that one, don't they?
Yeah, they always ask the one. Well, the way you went to the toilet on Apollo was very, very carefully. We had what was called the waste management system. And the waste management system was not a triumph of technology. It consisted of a little urinal that was connected to the side of the spacecraft, and if they allowed you to use it, you just opened a valve and all the urine went overboard. But if that didn't work, you had a urine bag that you had to strap on, and you could collect urine and save it. And out on the moon, we had that strapped on here, and you could urinate. And if you had to, nobody used it, but we had a big diaper on if you had to defecate. But fortunately, nobody ever had to use it. It would have been a big mess. But inside the spacecraft, once you're out of your suit, to defecate, you had a bag. It was about this big, and about that big around, and when you had to use it, you had to get naked, and you got in the lower equipment bay, and the other two guys got as far away as they could on the other side, because you never knew what was going to happen. And this bag had a little brim to it, and you peeled off a covering, and it was a sticky thing, and you just stuck it to your rear end. And unfortunately, zero gravity, nothing goes to the bottom of the bag. So it was adequate, but it was a bad system, but it worked. Space shuttle, however, and space station, they have a vacuum toilet. The space shuttle was just strapped to the wall, and you just floated over and you strapped yourself like a seatbelt to this toilet and turned on and it was a vacuum, and it just took everything into this chamber. So it was really a huge improvement. Okay, thank you very much. I think we'll stop. We've got a photo session here, and no, we did that already. I think we got autograph
Right, yeah.
done. So
We-
David's going to tell you how we're going to work this, because there's a lot of us here. Okay, so you get one autograph and no dedications, no to James, to whoever. I just sign. Okay, so we'll get everybody through that wants an autograph. It'd be one per person. So,
Right, there's,
oh, wait a minute.
Oh, yeah,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, because there's a couple of things to do, because obviously you paid your tickets, but you're not going to go out without paying some more money, because obviously we need to keep these things going. Because I don't think we want to finish on with these occasions, because I certainly enjoyed all the ones that we've done here. So in order to do this, we obviously got to self-fund. So we have got a draw to take place and then an auction to take place. Now we did have a very successful auction at lunchtime today. So it would be interesting to see if we were able to sort of beat the money that we made at lunchtime for these occasions. We're going to start with the draw first. And how many is it? 3? How many are we drawing out for this?
Andrew, how many are we drawing?
We're just counting. We might have been a few more thrown in now.
Okay.
Right, we'll do the first one anyway.
First one. Okay, 312. 312.
Right.
Okay.
So, well, what we'll do is we'll put the on the first prize and just put that with the first prize. Right. Next one.
463.
Okay. 463. Oh, colour. Sorry. Oh, it's too technical. That colour. Green.
How many more are we doing?
How many more?
Okay, this is a yellow one, 470. Way in the back.
Okay. Way in the back. Right. 470.
There's a blue one in it. 455 blue.
Right. How many more?
Anybody that got that one?
455 blue. Sorry. Right, green 463.
Oh, there you go, up there. Okay.
Next one.
Yellow tag, 471.
Okay.
You again?
Ah. I think we should draw another one, shall we? Don't you?
That's up to you.
I don't know.
Fair and square. What do you-
Yeah. Pardon? Of course.
Yeah.
We're in Yorkshire.
Yeah.
We're in Yorkshire. See, I can say that because I'm a Scouser.
Good point. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. How
How many more have we got? 2 haven't come down.
Come on down.
Come on now, otherwise you're not going to get your prize.
See how many we need.
Right, so how many more have we got on there? Another 2. Right, we're going for another 2 then.
Okay, yellow, 335. Okay,
Yeah.
there you are, sir.
And the last one.
Way down at the bottom. Blue tag, 198. Okay. there you go.
198.
Come on down.
Blue.
Yeah.
Any advances on 200? 220? 220, thank you. Any advances on two? You know I'm going to say a lot more than 200 and keep on going. Yes, sir? 230. Can we go up in 20s, do you think?
One up.
Can we have a 250, please? Can we have a 250? 250 for the back, thank you. 250, any advances on 250? 280. 280. Moving on from 280. Oh yes, have a look. It's an absolutely stunning photograph. 280. No, 300. 300 here. 350. Come on, please. We need your money. Please. You know what Scousers are like with money, don't you? All right.
400.
400, thank you. 400 over on the auditorium left. 400. Any advances on 400? Can we see 430 up near the middle and the 400? 400? Still on 400? Any advances on 400? 400? Any more advances on 400? £400. This is an absolute steal. Yes, sir. 430. Getting a little bit more interesting now. 430. Anything better than 430? Can we go for 450? Any 450? Perhaps if you were female.
Yeah, I should have run it.
Yes, I know you should have done, yes. Right, so we're on 430, aren't we, at the moment? Can we move it up to 450? 430 at the moment. 430? 450, thank you. £450. Of course, I'm going to have to say it again, 480. It just comes out of my mouth, 480. Anything more than 450 at the moment? 450. 450. It'll be on eBay for 1,000 soon, you know. 450. Anything 450? Anything more than 450? Does a peep? Pardon? 470. 470. 400. Do you know, 500 comes to mind at this moment. I don't know why I keep thinking 500. 470, okay. We can live with 470 for the moment, but 500 would be better. Anything better? Oh, say 500? Yes! We're nearly at 1,000. Okay. Halfway to 1,000. 500. See, the thing is now, we really need to move this on because, of course, Charlie's desperate to climb. And so the longer this takes to get to 1,000, the less time we've got for autographs because the caretaker will be coming back and we can't afford to pay him overtime. So we're on 500. We are on 500, aren't we? We're on 500. Yeah, it's okay, 500 so far. 520? 510? 505? It's going to run these occasions. We've got one or two more lined up, all right, and we use it for that. So it all goes into our fund for bringing, as some people said, pontefract astronauts. And this is true. This honestly, as you said to me yesterday, pontefract astronauts. The two don't go together. Well, they didn't. They do now. And these occasions self-finance and they keep them running. I did say 500, didn't I? Yes. Anything over 500? 520, thank you very much. 520. Any advances on 520? 520. 520. We all want the autographs now, don't we? Yes. Shall we settle for 520? Right, that's it. 550, thank you very much. Of course, one of our goodness. Thank you. 550. Anything over 550? I should really say no now, because this at the moment is going to be in the entrance area to the school. So 550. Gone quiet now. I think I might have killed it all off, because we're going to have it in school. I think it does. Thank you very much. I won't tell you what was just been said. Right, anyway, I know, but I had to... Oh, one more item. Oh, we've still got to take some more money. So those of you who were bidding before, shall we start at 500? No? Oh, right, fine.
As you well know, the last space shuttle recently launched, STS-135. I've actually got a piece of ribbon here that flew on that last mission, so it's an historic mission, no more space shuttles. And the guy who's provided this is also quite well known. He's done the Bloodhound race car, the fastest land car in the world. He also won the record for the land speed. And his name's Andy Green, who's donated it. He recently had Neil Armstrong around to have a look at the car and showed him around the engineering workshop where they developed it. So the letter to Ken is, as promised, enclosed is an STS-135 vinyl space shuttle ribbon for auction. This was obtained by me from the Kennedy Space Centre staff shop during the mission. As you know, I was there to cover the mission as part of the media. Also enclosed for the auction is a picture I took of the launch, which I have now signed. So Andy Green's actually signed this photo of the final space shuttle launch. So that's very, very generous of him. So this is a pretty good memento. The last space shuttle mission, STS-135. Somebody could start me off at £80. Sorry? Yeah.
Well, that'll be the authentication. Yeah.
Andy Green signed it.
So we've got £80? £80. Excellent. 100? £100. Any advance on 100? Remember, it's autographing time soon, so we're wasting time now. So £100, any advance on 100? 120? 120. Advance on 120. Pardon? 150. Any advance on 150? 150. 150. £200. £200. Any advances on £200? On you, sir. 220. I've been watching that auction programme on television, so I suddenly realised that's what you say, isn't it? So it's 220, 250. Anybody else want to join in this little party? No, 250 at the moment. £300. £300. Any advances on 300? 310? 320. 320. 320. 350. £400. £400. It's been stunning today. Well, the amount of money that's actually gone into this fund has actually been fantastic. So we're on 400 at the moment. That's okay. Right. So we'll go with £400. So thank you very much. Oh, sorry. 420. Right. Right, the clock's running. Yeah, no, we do need to get on. 5 seconds. No, okay. So to you, sir. Thank you very much. The challenge now is to get the autographs completed. Now, I know there's photographs which are out in the outside here for picking, because I know a lot of people want to have the photographs autographed. I know people have come with other memorabilia to be signed, but in order to get this done effectively, efficiently, and really to be out there before midnight, because midnight is the record. But I don't want that record breaking, because I want to go home tonight. So, what we'll try and do is, please, we'll start with the front rows, and then we'll sort of work our way back. Is that fair enough? Okay, but the only catch is, it's just got to be, thank you, it's just got to be the autograph, because we need to get everybody through. So it'll just be one autograph per person, please. Yeah, we can get the photographs which are out, I think the photographs are outside. Okay, so we'll start an orderly queue.